So you started playing Lethal Company, and you want to know more about the countless dangerous and not so dangerous monsters and creatures in the game. Well, we've got you covered. Hi, I'm Adrian, and today we're going through all of the monsters featured in Lethal Company, from the least dangerous fauna to the most dangerous monsters. Let's get started. Harmless. Starting off light, these first few creatures are mainly harmless, so we'll speed through this section for you. Our first entry in this Lethal Company bestiary is the roaming locust. These little buggers are usually flying around as a bunch, and for newer Lethal Company players, you may confuse these with the more dangerous circuit peas. But these bugs pose very little actual threat to the player, unless, you have an actual fear of locusts or bugs. The roaming locusts serve mainly to add to the ambiance of the game. You can literally walk right through them and they'll disperse. Next, we have manticoils. These flying creatures are also harmless. They look like they'd be dangerous, and trust me, I was paranoid of them when I first started playing. But again, they're only really there to diversify the fauna in the game and don't attack you. Low danger monsters. Going up one level to the low danger category, we have the hoarding bug. The hoarding bugs roam the inside of facilities, looting whatever items they find lying around. Hoarding bugs are actually kind of harmless if you don't aggro them. Sometimes they kind of just stare at you. However, don't underestimate them, because if you do aggro them by stealing their loot or hitting them, there's still a chance that they can take you down. Pro tip, if you're collecting loot, you might want to take your items outside of the facility instead of keeping them by the entrance so that you can prevent these critters from stealing your loot. Next, we have the spore lizard. Now, this big-mouthed creature over here can scare the hell out of players that aren't expecting them, but they are generally harmless and leave you alone if you just avoid touching it or getting too close to it. Honestly, spore lizards are more scared of you than you should be of them, and they will back away if encountered. But remember, they are kind of defensive creatures and will release a pink mist if aggroed, and this pink mist will be harmful to you, the player. Medium danger monsters. Moving up to the medium danger level, these monsters are, well, more dangerous than the previous batch. Unlike at low danger, these medium danger monsters are usually on the attack. Not confirmed, but that's just kind of my observation. First on this set is the Hygrodeer, which I have never heard of until researching. We just call it the Blob or Slime, occasionally Osmosis Jones, whatever you want to call it, because more likely than not, I will not be going, "Oh, Hygrodeer, Hygrodeer." These are slow-moving bluish blobs, and these slow-moving blobs are pretty easy to deal with. You can dodge them since they're so slow, and you can climb on railings since they don't have much height. You can also hit them with a shovel, which could cause them to split into two, which is fun. Next, we have the Earth Leviathan. Looking and acting similar to the Graboids from those old Tremors films, or the Molduga from Tears of the Kingdom, these gigantic worms spring from the ground and eat anything that's within range. Yes, it can eat the forest giant. Yes. Anyway, you'll know these beasts are about to emerge from the sound they make. So when you hear the little grumbly in the ground, run. For this next one, I'm going to give you a little trigger warning for those of y'all that hate spiders, because this next one is, wait for it, the bunker spider. Giant spiders that roam the halls and spin webs. You'll know a spider is in the facility if you spot some webs. And when you do, be sure not to touch them, because they will aggro the spiders and cause them to chase you. When encountering a bunker spider, it's best to just jump on some rails and just bash them with a shovel. Our next monster is another giant bug, the snare flea. These buggers, as the name suggests, look like giant fleas, and they have the ability to latch on to any unassuming player's head. I've been told you'll know it's in the facility if you see some vents open. So once you do, just pay attention to the ceilings, because that's usually where they hang out. And when it does latch onto your head, you can hit it with a shovel to get it off, but you can have someone hit it with a shovel to get it off, try picking up your shovel after you've dropped it to get it off, or run to the nearest exit if you can. Next, we have an outdoor monster, the Forest Keeper, or what my group likes to call it, the Forest Giant. As I just said, they are one of the monsters that appear outside of the facilities, often where there's a forest biome of sorts. You'll know if a Forest Keeper spawns because these hulking monstrosities are heavy, so their footsteps can be heard, and it can hint at their position relative to the player. Unlike the eyeless dogs, which we'll be talking about later, the Forest Keeper has eyes, so you have to remain out of sight sight to avoid being chased by a forest keeper. Next, we have the baboon hawk. Baboon hawks, despite having hawk in their name, do not fly, and instead hop around like a baboon. These monsters will attack the player if they're solo, but if it's outnumbered, they'll maintain their distance. However, if the numbers are in the baboon hawk's favor, and the baboon hawks outnumber the player, they'll attack. Now, I'll be honest, I rarely encounter this monster, but the few times I have, I often kind of mistake it for a manticoil, until they start chasing you, which is when I usually stop thinking it's a manticoil. Our last entry in the medium danger category are the circuit bees. These bees are hovering around their beehive and attack players that get too close. You can avoid these insects pretty easily by avoiding the buzzing sound you hear when you get too close, but there have definitely been times where I've accidentally run into them because my teammates have covered the sound with the shouting in the comms. They just don't shut up on the walkie-talkie sometimes. Skill issue, really, for me. If you want to risk it, circuit beehives are very valuable, but not exactly the safest loot to grab. Usually you'd grab it last because no matter where you put those beehives, the circuit bees will follow. So you want to make a quick escape. High danger monsters. Now our last batch are high danger monsters. As the name implies, these enemies are extremely dangerous and are more commonly but not exclusively found on higher hazard levels and will more likely than not result in instantaneous death. The first of these is the Ghost Girl. This creepy little girl only appears to players that are haunted by her, and will follow the player everywhere they go. Normally monsters disappear once you leave the facility, but the Ghost Girl will follow even if you leave the facility and go back to your ship. Nowhere is safe. Creepy little girl. Anyways, we've got the eyeless dogs up next. Being eyeless, these are another outdoor monster. Being eyeless, sight isn't really their thing, so these big dogs with big teeth are attracted to sounds. This means that even your walkie-talkie and talking in general will attract them. The best course of action is to turn off your walkie-talkie and crouch to sneak past them. They're also attracted to the sound of the drop pod. If you really need a distraction, you can also order some stuff in the store because the music the drop pod emits actually attracts these eyeless dogs. Now, we have the Coilhead. If you're a fan of Doctor Who, these can be compared to the Weeping Angels, or if you've played any video game featuring unsettling moving mannequins, it can be compared to those two. The Coilheads are very fast monsters, and the only way to stop them in their tracks is by staring at them. As long as someone has their line of sights on them, they'll be locked in position, unable to move. But the moment lines of sight are interrupted, these monsters will move towards the player at incredible speeds. And these Coilheads can go from like the other side of the room to right to your feet in like less than that. It's really crazy. Unlike Coilheads, however, our next monster aggroes when stared at. This monster is the Bracken, or the Flower Man, or what I'd like to call Ryuk from Death Note, you know, the Shinigami that's flying around. Anyway, the Bracken is an extremely sneaky monster, and you'll more likely than not die from behind. So if you know there's a Bracken in the facility, your best bet is to keep your head on a swivel and look around every now and then. The Bracken will stop chasing you and run away if you catch them chasing, but don't stare too long or else you'll aggro it. And good luck running away from it, because it's a lot faster than you. So it seems like one thing in common with a lot of these high danger monsters is that they're fast, and another one of these is the Thumper. In the dark, it's probably hard to tell what you're looking at, but remember, Thumpers don't have legs, move around the facility using your arms, and you will hear these arms because, as the name suggests, they do thump. So if you see monsters kind of, I want to say they kind of look like giant bats, like what you'd think like a Zubat would look if it was kind of creepy looking, you know, just on its arms. Yeah, they kind of look like bats. So if you see one of these monsters on their front arms, run. Just move out of the way because these monsters are like raging bulls and will run at the player at high speeds. Thumpers are also lowriders, so getting up on a ledge will help you avoid getting hurt by Thumpers because they can't really attack anything above a ledge. And last but not least, we have the Jester. This unsettling monster is basically a living jack-in-the-box. At first glance, the Jester might seem harmless, as it doesn't really do much except follow the player around. However, once it starts winding itself up, and the jack-in-the-box music starts playing, word of advice, run. Run as fast as you can, because once the music stops playing, the Jester's true form is revealed, and they will chase the player at extremely high speeds, until all players are out of the building, whether they exit or fall at the hands of the Jester. And those are all the monsters featured in Lethal Company so far. The game is still in early access, and I want to say we don't really know the plans of the devs, so there's so much that can be added between now and the final version of the game. If you like this video, be sure to comment down below and give us a thumbs up. And if you really like this video, subscribe to the Leaderboard, your home for video game facts.